Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my Halloween marathon. I just watched the Blair Witch Project. It was really good, but it really scared me. Okay, I'm not gonna do the entire review, just close up like that, but I did see the Blair Witch Project. This has been on my list for a very long time. I've heard about this film for a very long time. I've seen parts of it. I've seen I've seen analysis videos about it and like theory videos about like what the Blair Witch is, what the plot is really about. But I've never really seen the entire film until until tonight. And I gotta say, this film is the first one in a really long time that has genuinely creeped me out. Like there's a lot of these horror movies that I've seen like over the past several years that while they've gotten intense a few times, they've never really scared me or anything, but this one actually did. And I think that just is purely based off of the acting of the three main characters, Heather, Mike, and Josh. I've read a few times about how they weren't given a whole lot of direction except for on their GPS, and they were kind of like told where to go, and the way with very minimal communication from the director and the crew. So a lot of their reactions were genuine, which just makes for a better film. The story itself, everybody knows the story about like three college students wanting to do a documentary about the fictional Blair Witch, right? So they go to I believe it's still called the Black Hills. So I played the Blair Witch video game before I ever saw the movie, and I'm pretty sure it's still called the Black Hills Forest. But most of the runtime is spent there. Obviously, there are some scenes in like the town that I believe was renamed to Burkittsville to stray away from the Blair Witch. And one of the things that I really like about this movie is that it doesn't always use like the same camera format. Like every so often it switches up from like the faded film look of sort of like a like I don't even know what to call it, like a documentary camera. Sorry, but then for the actual like interview scenes where they're filming, they switch to like a black and white 16 millimeter. And that's a pretty cool way to, I thought that was a pretty cool way to like shake things up, because I'll admit there were a few times where like it's just on the same camera where it felt like it was dragging on, especially during the first half of the film. But fortunately, those scenes are few and far between. Obviously, being that it was like, if not the first found footage horror movie, like one of the ones that really popularized the genre and like brought it into the mainstream audience. It's like there's very little blood and gore aside from the remains of Josh towards the end of the film. Like the horror isn't really about like the blood and guts that are shown. It's more about the like isolation of these three college students and how the isolation and whole like being lost is slowly driving them all insane and turning them against one another, which again factors into the whole genuine reactions, right? The the fact that they were using like one of those older cameras, so that sometimes it has like static or the noise and grain. Sorry. I think that the whole noise and static or like the glitchiness of the video sometimes just adds to the charm of this film. Um, I really can't say anything about like the audio or the music because like there is no music because the way this was edited was that it was like the literal found footage of when people tried to search for these three college students, and instead all they found were these tapes. Um, which, again, credit to the director. Like, that was fantastic marketing. Before watching this movie, I heard about the marketing tactics that the film company used, where they actually set up these websites about these missing college students, and I believe that they also put them out on IMDb or something like that. And people actually believed that this was actual footage at the time, to the point where I think that the director had to go to court or whatever and prove that like it's just a movie and they were just actors. At least that's how I'm remembering it. But either way, it was like this was a great movie. Again, this was the first film in a very long time that has genuinely scared me because of how real their acting was, especially at the end when when they finally get to the Blair Witch's house, and like Heather is like going hysterical looking for Josh. Mike is screaming at the top of his lungs trying to find his friend, and like they're constantly going upstairs and then downstairs. And then, like, when Mike first reaches downstairs, like, something just blindsides him from behind and just makes his camera cut out. And then Heather goes to the basement, sees Mike just standing in a corner, which harkens back to the legend of the Blair Witch about how, like, she would kill people and then stand their bodies up in the corner, which causes her to, like, just scream in terror. And then she gets killed off. Again, that just freaked me out. And like, keep in mind, when I watched this film, like, first of all, I watched it in the dark, and I also watched it when I was like the only person in my house, which just ups the creep factor. But real quick, my favorite, honestly, my favorite scene that I think is the creepiest though is like the night before that Josh gets lost, and like they hear this baby crying, right? And again, like the horror isn't about like blood and guts or anything. Like it's about the isolation. It's about like the college students getting lost and like going crazy and turning on each other. And it's also about the horror is also in like what you don't see, right? Because technically you never see the Blair Witch except for a blink and you miss it moment during that during that specific scene where like you hear a baby crying and you hear like what sounds like some inhuman laughter, which causes Heather and Mike to run out of the tent, and the camera is shaking like everywhere. And like again, there's that blink and you miss it moment where you see some kind of thing in the distance, and Heather starts screaming like, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" And like and again, I'm pretty sure that was the Blair Witch in a blink and you miss it moment. But the camera is shaking so much you don't know what exactly it was you saw. So the horror is in what you don't see, especially like at the end when you don't really see what kills Mike and Heather. And that's what makes this movie just so bone-chilling. And like to be honest, like not to toot my own horn, but like it's also like the whole found footage angle and stuff. It's kind of what inspired me to do like my own first person scenes in horror films. All right. Like a lot of the shorts that I've done like in the past, I tried to have that like almost found footage, but not quite look. Even in like the early short films that I've done. And in fact, like I got this really old like uh 3 XL1 Canon camera that I've already shot footage on that, and I'm pretty sure that like no matter what tape I use, like the camera is always gonna make it look glitchy, which you know what, that's fine with me because I've been planning on doing like another either short film or like an actual film where some parts look like it's found footage, but for the most part it's gonna be like regularly shot. But the parts that are gonna look like they're found footage, like I'm gonna be using that camera, so it's gonna have that glitchy feel to it. And and honestly, I credit the Blair Witch Project to of giving me that whole idea. So all in all, this was a great film. I really can't think of anything that I didn't like about this film because again, like this is the first horror movie I've seen in years, and that's including the ones that I've seen in theaters so far. Like this is the first one I've seen in years that has actually like genuinely scared me. So great job to that film because there's not a lot of horror movies these days that really shock me. I mean, I like watching movies like Terrifier and A Nightmare on Elm Street all the time, so nothing much shocks me about these movies anymore. But the Blair Witch Project managed to do that, so kudos to them. The movie, I consider the movie a great classic. Um, Definitely watch it, even if you're not into the found footage genre. Like, I'm not, and I'm especially not when it's used all the time. Like, kind of similar to Hardcore Henry, how it was constantly in first person, and like eventually the gimmick got old fast. But this movie is great, and my only regret is that I didn't see this one any sooner. So anyway, that's it for this review. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another one. Bye, everyone.